we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate how much was done, but honestly, there is still a lot to do as we continue to make progress on the nuclear talks, on the economic talks, as we continue to demine the straits and ensure that that flow of traffic continues to pick back up. A lot of progress, but still some work to do, and we're very committed to doing exactly that.
Okay, so that's the vice president. Now what about the president? This weekend, President Donald Trump took a different approach. He unleashed an expletive-laden threat with Fox News after the Islamic Republic said it would close the Strait of Hormuz. Here is reaction from both sides of the aisle.
If this deal fails, President Trump is going to take the Strait of Hormuz over by force. If Iran contests control of the Strait of Hormuz by the United States, we will obliterate them.
This president has led this nation into a disaster. We have surrendered our power, we have capitulated to the enemy, and they now are mocking us.
Okay, so that's how we start a new week. Peace talks and reports of very, very good progress by the vice president. And let's talk live to Washington CBS News reporter Aaron Navarro. And then on the other hand, Aaron, we've got a president who is using expletives and saying bomb Iran.
Yeah, that's right, Reed. That's what the president told Fox News in a phone interview yesterday, just at the start of the negotiations between the U.S., Iran, and other mediating countries. At one point, it resulted in reports that the Iranian delegation was willing to walk away from those negotiations, though the vice president said they eventually stuck around, and what we got was 18 hours of talks between the two sides and the mediating countries of Pakistan and Qatar. Now, while the vice president says there is still much work to do, I'll kind of tick through what we know on what the sides have said they have achieved. Vance announced that Iran has approved of the UN nuclear watchdog inspectors to come in and look at what remains of their nuclear enrichment program, though it's still unknown on exactly how much access they will get. The vice president said they could go in as soon as today, so that'll be something to watch as this week continues. He also said that there was a line of direct communication between the U.S. and Iran that has been established to avoid any more mishaps when it comes to language about the Strait of Hormuz. You saw Iran threaten to essentially close down the strait,
taking any ships, and are currently charging tolls still, I think. Are they still currently charging tolls?
After some of President Trump's more colorful comments, the U.S. Central Command said that as of this morning, the strait remains open for navigation. And Vice President Vance also said in this press conference this morning that the U.S. and Qatar are working through a method to have approval of how Iran spends its unfrozen assets. Again, that'll only happen should Iran comply with some of what the U.S. wants, but it seems that the U.S. and Qatar are working on a sort of approval system, with Vance saying that Jared Kushner floated the idea of Iran using money from those unfrozen assets to buy American corn, soy, and wheat for the Iranians as they are dealing with their worst inflation since World War II.
We also know there was that emergency session.
And we're also going to look at Trump's speech today as well.
With Iran on Lebanon. Where do things stand there?
Yeah, Vice President Vance and Iran gave readouts that said there was a sort of deconfliction mechanism set up between Israel and Lebanon to help alleviate and prevent any future strikes between Israel and Hezbollah. Iran's foreign minister said that there was major progress in talks with the U.S. on this front, and Vance talked up this mechanism, saying that the U.S. is in touch with both Israel and Lebanon. Take a listen to what he said earlier this morning in Switzerland.
I would describe it as very good progress, too. I mean, look, we want a regional ceasefire, right? We want Hezbollah to stop firing at our friends in Israel. We want Israelis to be able to live in peace. We also want to make sure that, you know, when things happen, they don't spiral into a broader escalation. And so we've been, I think, very good at setting up what we're calling a deconfliction mechanism. But what it really is to say that when things happen, the sides are actually talking to one another.
And while the White House has been critical of Israel's continued strikes in Lebanon, especially in the southern part of that country, Vance declined to call on Netanyahu to withdraw Israeli forces completely from southern Lebanon, despite Qatar maintaining their position that Israel should do so. Prime Minister Netanyahu said today earlier that his military has, quote, full freedom of action in that part of Lebanon and will remain there.
You see, a main problem that I see when it comes to it is everyone is really not on the same page when it comes to the U.S. Iran is publicly disputing parts of that, especially inspections of missile negotiations and stuff. Now, the Lebanon Hezbollah Israel front. Now, the main thing that could blow up on this is I read a Reuters article this morning. Israel talks begin in Washington under the shadow of the U.S.-Iran deal, but Israel wants Hezbollah disarmed, while Lebanon wants the Israeli defense to withdraw from the southern Lebanon. Now, this makes the ceasefire more of a regional pressure valve than a clear ending, really. And are we going to see a clear ending? Probably not. And is this war going to last a couple years? Maybe. But this might be the longest war that I'm going to report on ever.
As long as he feels it's necessary.
Aaron Navarro live in Washington. Thank you for that. Now let's go even deeper. CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Keeley. Courtney, you have deep sources there in Iran. What are you hearing about this so-named roadmap?
Well, I can tell you that I've heard about the roadmaps for different conflicts, for different peace processes and different times that came to nothing. A roadmap is a diplomatic term that was used often for the Israelis and Palestinians, and I never saw it come to fruition. So even the word roadmap started me getting worried. The idea of a roadmap, sure, let's look at what we've got and where they're going to go. We're looking at today. Right now, the U.S. Treasury is waiving sanctions temporarily until August 21st. And that will happen so Iran really can start exporting oil and working with their petrochemical products. That's important for Iran to stay on board. I have to point to J.D. Vance right now and say that in his Q&A, he got a little more loose with his talk. He called the Iranians whiners. And he also said that the region has been a basket case for years.
Damn.
That does not go over well.
A huge basket case.
Iranians and Persians who identify as Persians that like to think of themselves as an empire of thousands and thousands of years. In fact, one of the ways they mocked President Trump was to put up a former king who had won militarily thousands of years ago, saying, we did it, we won, they lose. So they've even mocked President Trump's signature. And meanwhile, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, though, is being very temperate. And they're saying that they put out a picture that was actually visually really the sign that they're behind Mojtaba Khamenei. They wrote something to him saying, we stand behind our country, our government, our negotiators, like a mountain. And that was really a message to the hardliners. You saw Abbas Araghchi yesterday not get into that picture and the grip and grin, as they call them, because it was just too tenuous. He kind of scooted out of the way before they could do that. So we're not getting to nuclear deals. We're not getting to what nuclear physicists, if any, could be on this deal. They are talking about the IAEA doing negotiations. But when, where will be the key sticking points? What nuclear power plants? What part of the nuclear program? And lastly, I got to say one last thing that Vance said was he talked about building a foundation. I can't help it. My mind went to the rebar of the Middle East. Most people build like a first level to their house, and then they add a second level, but leave the rebar exposed for when their children have children or when they're going to get married and they're going to move in because they like to have multi-generational families under one roof. And I just kept thinking, is it just concrete and rebar we're seeing here, or something really going to be added to that foundation and built? And I don't see what the plans are. What is the blueprint, so to speak, as opposed to the roadmap?
Meanwhile, so many...
Now, there is a ceasefire, but there's no peace. This is a 60-day timeout where Trump is trying to lock into Iran's nuclear inspections to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, hopefully, and to stop this regional war from spreading even further.